Fewer and fewer Singaporeans are choosing to have children. And despite 2024 being the year of the dragon, which traditionally has always been an auspicious time to have kids, and the Senior Minister Lee's call of adding a little dragon to your family, Singapore's total fertility rate fell to a record low of 0.97. In fact, Singapore's current total fertility rate is far below the 2.1 replacement rate, which is required for a country to maintain its population. What this means is that Singapore will not only have a shrinking younger population, but by 2030, we will achieve the super age status, where 1 in 4 citizens will be aged 65 and above. This is definitely concerning for the future of Singapore, not just for the population numbers, but also for the economy, social fabric, and even the very identity of the nation. Now, to be fair, the declining fertility rate isn't just limited to Singapore, but rather this is a global trend, especially in many developed countries where they see their fertility rate declining too. But what you may not realize is that Singapore's total fertility rate is now among the lowest in the world, and it's only slightly higher than countries like Taiwan, Hong Kong, and especially South Korea, which has called this a national demographic crisis. So what is causing this to happen? And why are Singaporeans becoming more hesitant to to produce more babies? If you scroll through online forums and social media, one recurring theme stands out among the rest: the high cost of living. It's no secret that the cost of living in Singapore is already sky high, even without children. From food to housing to healthcare, many Singaporeans are already finding it hard just to stay afloat. And the thought of raising a child with all the added expenses would just make it even more daunting. Quick pause. If you are looking for the cheapest broker to start your investing journey, check out Interactive Brokers. It has the lowest fees for stocks, ETFs, options, and more. Not just that, Interactive Brokers lets you easily research stocks. Like, you want to check out companies' financials? There, here it is. You want to check out analyst ratings? There, here's a bunch of them. It even has free technical insights which tells you where the stock might possibly go next. So sign up to Interactive Brokers today, and let's get back to the video. But then, here's a question. If things are already so tough now, weren't they even tougher back in our grandparents' time? Many of them lived in poverty, yet they still managed to raise large families. So, why were people back then able to have so many kids? For example, back in the 1960s, Singapore's total fertility rate used to be around 4 to 5 times. That means on average, each woman had 4 to 5 children. I don't know about you, but the thought of having that many kids today is honestly quite scary. The reason families used to have so many kids in the past was simply because children were seen as valuable helping hands, as they were able to help out with household chores, family businesses, or even farm work. And in the later years, children were expected to provide and take care of their aging parents. In fact, there's a Chinese term for this, which is called 养儿防老, which literally translates to bringing up children for the purpose of being looked after in the old age. But as time passed by, not only has the expectation of taking care of parents changed, it is literally illegal to make your child work for you. Because of that, it's no wonder that some people view children as a financial burden, or to put it quite simply, a liability. So how much does it cost to raise a child? According to online estimates, it will cost anywhere from $290,000 to $360,000 to raise a child from pregnancy all the way to university, or basically the price of a one-room flat in Ang Mo Kio La. Right off the bat, from pregnancy all the way to delivery, depending on whether you opt to deliver in public or private hospitals, the test performed, as well as the delivery method, you should expect to spend anywhere between $5,000 all the way to $27,000. And that's just the start. Then, during the infant years, from 0 to 3 years old, you will be spending anywhere around $44,000 to $92,000 on stuff such as postnatal care, hygiene, clothes, insurance, childcare, and of course, diapers. And oh god, the amounts of diapers that they use are insane. Thankfully, by the time they turn 3, all the way to 6 years old, the cost would have dropped a little to $27,000, but it's still a huge sum nonetheless. Then, in their primary school years, the cost would go back up to $68,000 again. Because, you know, tuition classes and enrichment classes. Because how else our kid is supposed to be the next astrophysicist If they don't go to every class available, after that, it will cost us around $50,000 in their secondary school years, $24,000 in their pre-university years, and finally $69,000 during their university years. And that's only if they decide to study in Singapore. If they decide to study overseas, well, may God bless you, because it will cost you at least 4 to 10 times more. According to the latest household expenditure survey, the median money expenditure per household member is about $1,758. On the income side, the median money income per working individual, excluding employer CPF contributions, is around $4,860. If we also exclude employee CPF contributions, the actual take-home pay drops to roughly $3,888 per person. Assuming a dual income household, that brings the total take-home income to approximately $7,776 per month. This means that each child accounts for about 23% of the household's monthly take-home income, and that's just for basic spending. So, as you can see, having a child can place a significant financial burden on household expenses, especially for the low to middle income families. But then, here's something interesting. If you look at the average household size by income quintile, you will notice that the middle income families tend to have a larger family size as compared to households in the higher income brackets. This means that cost is not the only factor affecting low birth rates here. According to a survey by YouGov, another major reason people chose not to have children is the impact it will have on their careers and current lifestyle. This is a trend that we see time and time again. The more educated we become, the more we earn. The more we earn, the more we will prioritize lifestyle, career, and personal freedom. And the more we prioritize ourselves, the fewer children we tend to have. Just look across the border at Malaysia. The states with the highest fertility rates, Terengganu, Kelantan, and Pahang, are also among the least developed regions in the country. In contrast, Penang and Kuala Lumpur, which have the lowest fertility rates, also happen to have one of the highest average household incomes in Malaysia. This is no coincidence. Greater household and urbanization often correlate with smaller family sizes. Just in case you are curious, no, we don't have this kind of data in Singapore. But what we do have is the total fertility rates by ethnic group, where it shows that Malays tend to have almost double the fertility rates as compared to Chinese and Indians. And I have no comments why this is the case. In a poll conducted by the Institute of Policy Studies, a significant 82% of respondents aged 21 to 34 say that it's acceptable for people to remain single. Meanwhile, 72% agreed that marriage does not necessarily have to lead to having children. As for why many are choosing not to have kids, the top reasons cited were high stress levels, together with, yes, the high cost of raising children again. Let's be honest, Singapore isn't exactly well known for being a stress-free place to live. In fact, Singapore is ranked as the third most burnout city in the world, where nearly 9 in 10 Singaporeans experience stress, and half of all workers say they feel mentally or physically exhausted from their jobs. That's not all. Singapore also holds the title of the most overworked country in the Asia-Pacific region, clocking the longest average working hours per week at 45. And that's not even counting industries where overtime is the norm. This kind of burnout is almost unavoidable in a hyper-competitive society like Singapore, where academic excellence, career advancement, and financial success are deeply ingrained in the national mindset. From a young age, Singaporeans are conditioned to strive, hustle, and outperform. And heaven forbid if you fall short, because anything less than perfection is often seen as failure, not just by institutions, but also by society itself. All of this just creates an environment where there's barely any room to breathe, let alone plan for a family. In such a system, having a children starts to feel less like a natural life stage and more like an overwhelming burden. Many young Singaporeans are asking themselves, how can I bring a child into the world when I can barely keep up with it myself? And when people are stressed out, they tend to reproduce less. So it's kind of like our animals in the zoo. When they are stressed, they tend to reproduce less. In fact, once you have a child, the pressure just intensifies. There's a strong societal expectation to give your child the best from day one. Top-tier preschools, endless enrichment classes, and private tuition. Case in point, private tuition in Singapore is a multi-billion-dollar industry, with families spending $1.8 billion in 2023 alone. There's a constant unspoken fear that your child might fall behind, And that fear feeds right back into the same high-stress cycle that many parents are desperately trying to escape themselves. Now, you may think, what does all these declining fertility rates have to do with me?
There's the babies, then there's the babies law.
Well, think again. Here's the population pyramid of Singapore. In 2005, the largest age group was 40 to 44. By 2015, that shifted up to 50 to 54. And while in 2024, the largest group is now 30 to 34, what really stands out is the increase in residents aged 65 and above. In short, Singapore's population is clearly aging. Here's another sobering chart. Back in 1990, there were 10.5 working-age residents for every person aged 65 and above. This is more than enough to comfortably support the older generation and drive the economy. Today, that ratio has dropped to just 3.5, and it is still declining. And how does that affect you? The biggest effect will be on healthcare. As the population gets older, the number of people who require medical care and long-term care will increase. To begin with, an aging population means the governments will need to spend significantly more on healthcare, from medication subsidies to building more hospitals, polyclinics, and elder care facilities. And where does this funding come from? Taxpayers like you and me. Back in 2022, when the government announced plans to raise the GST from 7% to 9%, they made it clear that the hike was necessary to fund rising healthcare and social spending due to the growing number of seniors. And while there are currently no plans for further increases, the government has already signaled that more hikes may be needed after 2030. On top of that, we can also expect a rise in medical insurance costs as insurers adjust to the growing healthcare demand from the aging population. Here, we can see that due to medical inflation and an aging population, MediShield Life payouts have increased by 9.8% annually between 2020 and 2023. As a result, between 2023 and 2024, insurance premiums jumped by 12%, and in 2025, projections show that premiums will rise by another 12%. And of course, as more and more elderly start receiving monthly payouts from CPF Life, the payouts may need to be adjusted downwards to keep CPF Life sustainable. This means we are looking at a double whammy in the future, where living costs continue to increase and CPF Life retirement income could decrease. Besides that, there may also be a shift in housing trends in the years to come. While Singapore is unlikely to face a scenario as severe as Japan, where an aging population has led to nearly 1 in 3 homes being abandoned, we are not immune to similar pressures. For example, given that we can't own 2 HDB properties at the same time, we might face an oversupply of resale HDB flats in the future, particularly in mature estates with aging populations. As more seniors pass on or move into assisted living facilities, and as younger generations increasingly prefer newer developments or different lifestyles, older flats may struggle to find buyers, especially those with limited lease remaining. This potential oversupply could soften resale prices in certain areas and widen the price gap between older and newer flats. As such, Singapore's national housing policies will need to evolve to address these emerging challenges. This could include enhancing lease buyback schemes, offering more attractive incentives for younger buyers to consider older flats, or accelerating the redevelopment of aging estates under programs like the Selective On-Block Redevelopment Scheme or the newer Voluntary Early Redevelopment Scheme. But wait, that's not all. As more Singaporeans retire, there will be fewer adults left to drive the economy. This could eventually lead to lower productivity, slower economic growth, labour shortages, as well as lower innovation. Naturally, the government is well aware of all these issues and has actually been actively taking steps to address them. On the financial front, the government has been steadily increasing the amount of payouts for every child born to help ease the financial burden of raising a child, especially during the earlier years. Preschool fees have also been lowered to make early childhood education more affordable and accessible for families. In addition, parents benefit from a suite of tax reliefs and rebates. For instance, the Working Mother's Child Relief offers up to $12,000 per child. The Qualifying Child Relief provides up to $7,500 per child. There's also the Grandparent Caregiver Relief, which adds another $3,000, all of which helps to alleviate the financial pressures of raising a family. And contrary to what some might think, the government is doing more than just throwing money at the problem. In education, the government has been reforming the system to reduce stress and improve the quality of life for families. For example, secondary school streaming has been abolished, and replaced with subject-based banding to customize learning according to students' strengths while minimizing the stigma of labeling. At the same time, school exam rankings have been removed, mid-year exams are cut for various levels, and the criteria for junior college admission revised, all to help reduce academic pressure and create a more holistic learning environment. And on the employment front, efforts are being made to make workplaces more family-friendly. This includes increasing parental leave provisions and introducing guidelines that encourage flexible work arrangements so that parents can better manage their professional and caregiving responsibilities. Finally, to address the broader challenge of a shrinking workforce, the government acknowledges that immigration isn't just necessary, but as Senior Minister Lee Hsien Loong puts it, existential for Singapore's long-term survival. In light of this, Singapore continues to grant permanent residencies and citizenships each year. However, this is done in a deliberate and calibrated manner to avoid the kind of social tensions and political backlash seen in some countries with poorly managed immigration flows. The focus is on selecting individuals who can contribute meaningfully to the economy, integrate well into society, and are committed to sinking roots in Singapore. In summary, Singapore is grappling with complex demographic challenges, from declining birth rates and an aging population to a shrinking workforce. These issues are deeply intertwined, and there is no simple or quick solution. Ultimately, Singapore's long-term resilience won't rest on the government's policy alone. It will also depend on how we, as a society, respond, whether employers can adapt, communities can support, and individuals can rise to the occasion. Because in the end, safeguarding our future isn't just about numbers or policies, it's about people. And it's only by moving forward together that we can ensure Singapore remains a place where every generation has a chance to thrive.